Hello and welcome to the news on HOMEF TV. I am Kome Ojomo. First, the highlights. HOMEF builds on restoration and dignity. Farmers calls for ban on GMOs. Youth group urge minister to support ban on healthy consumables. Farmers in Uyo Afan community in Ikono local government area of Akwa Ibom State have called on the state government to ban GMOs and implement measures to prevent their use in the states. This call was made at a follow-up agroecology training organized by Health of Moderates Foundation. Our correspondent, Onome Etisir, completes the report.
The community demonstrated a strong commitment to adopting sustainable farming practices and protecting their livelihoods by establishing a cooperative farm with support from HOMEF. This is a significant step towards ensuring the community's food security and independence from GMOs and harmful chemicals. Farmers who had participated in the previous training shared testimonies of improved crop performance after applying the agroecology principles and methods they had learned from applying organic fertilizer. They confirmed enhanced productivity due to the use of organic fertilizer and pesticides.
Initially, I did not even appreciate the use of chemical fertilizer. So when I heard of this organization coming, I think I was one of the first person that arrived here. So far, so good. I love experimenting things before I use it. I had a kind of evidence to show that once I got the fertilizer, I first of all apply it to bitter leaf, the way two stand, and I refuse to apply it to the second stand to see the difference. But surprisingly, the one I applied the fertilizer was so flourish. The chlorophyll was so rich, which I have it on my phone as an evidence. And the other one will remain scanty up till today. Then I went further to apply it on my pepper farm. I had enough pepper. Though people did not know me as a pepper seller, I gave out. I can mention name, even my clan head.
The essence of the training was highlighted while farmers had hands-on training in producing the Java Marut fertilizer and pesticides using the neem plant, chili pepper, and garlic. The Java Marut fertilizer was made using easily accessible materials including cow urine, cow dung, banana, and cow pee.
So I'm advising our farmers not to embrace this chemical fertilizer. It doesn't good for our body. Use this, you will be convinced that it's even more profitable and more economical than spending money to buy fertilizer all year round.
The narrative that we need GMOs to feed Nigeria's growing population, but with agroecology it has been proven, and even farmers who were at the previous training have testified that when they applied the biofertilizers and the biopesticides on their farm, they saw themselves how crop production drastically improved, even in light of other challenges that they have been facing. So this goes to actually prove that agroecology works and that we can feed the country without having to use GMOs, which have dire implications for the environment, for human health, and even for our economy in terms of the corporate capture and control of food systems. So this training is basically to empower farmers with knowledge on how to do crop spacing, how to improve biodiversity on their farm, how to address issues of pests and diseases using the bio or the organic inputs without having to do GMOs.
The implications of GMOs on farmers' rights and the local economy were also discussed. At the end of discussions, the farmers unanimously called on the state government to ban GMOs and came up with key recommendations and demands to increase support for farmers by providing extension services and storage facilities. They urged the government to consider producing an agroecology policy to guide research and encourage the practice of agroecology in the state. Onome Etisir for HOMEF TV.
Health of Moderates Foundation, HOMEF, in collaboration with the Nigerian Institute for Oceanography and Marine Research, NIOMA, and the International Ocean Institute Nigerian Center, held a hybrid State of the Ocean workshop. This meeting comprised community fishers, researchers, and different ministries. The discussion centered understanding the value of the water bodies around Africa and mapping the current conditions and threats. Our correspondent Stanley Egolo completes the report.
The workshop sought to develop a critical understanding of the need to monitor and report on African water bodies, foster partnerships between critical stakeholders in the ocean value chain, build a network of relevant organizations, and mobilizing campaigns to strengthen relevant policy frameworks. The Director of Research and Fisheries Resources, Dr. Patrice Obatola, who represented the Executive Director and CEO of the Nigerian Institute of Oceanography and Marine Research, stated that the oceans around Africa face unprecedented challenges, including rising sea levels, ocean acidification, warming temperatures, and the proliferation of dead zones. The Executive Director of Health of Mother Earth Foundation, Nemo Basi, x-rayed the impacts of mindless exploitation activities offshore and near shore that prioritize profits over people.
The major challenge facing the ocean, not only in Nigeria, is human beings. If we human beings get our acts together, the ocean actually has no problem. So if we can fix the human beings, the ocean will have no problem. Because most of the problems that we see in the ocean, they are all man-made. We are talking about climate change. What's the essence of climate? What's the genesis of climate change? It's the increase in temperature. The ice caps are melting. It's affecting the ocean. The ocean will have sea level rise. And so many things. So the main thing, like I said earlier, is that if we human beings can fix ourselves, if you can realize that the ocean, that the earth is for all of us, we need to take care of the earth, we need to take care of ourselves, then we'll be more friendly to the earth, and the earth will be more friendly to us.
The government has to realize that the coastline of Nigeria is changing. The map of Nigeria is actually changing because a lot of territory is being lost to the ocean due to sea level rise. Communities are being washed away. Communities like Ayetoro is being washed away, largely washed away. We're having internally displaced persons because of ocean taking of the land. I was going to say ocean encroachment, ocean surge. And this is because of a number of factors. We're having oil companies building canals from the ocean into the hinterland, and those canals are dividing communities, destroying ecosystems, and generally changing everything more or less. So we have to wake up to the fact that it cannot continue to be business as usual. We have to deliberately and intentionally protect our shorelines. One is by changing the way we do things, by changing the kind of industrial activities we allow there, and also by restoring the natural ecosystem.
Participants in a strategic session discussed the need for a State of the Ocean report and how to generate one.
The fish in the water doesn't have a problem. So is the whale, so is the turtle. It is we human beings that are creating the problem for them. As a result of so many factors. We need development, we need to eat, we need to live. So we need to start adjusting. And that adjustment comes in various forms. And it is not an agency or government responsibility. It cut across every person and every organization. And there must be some level of synergy. Government cannot be doing something and the people are doing the otherwise. Or the people decide to do something and the government is doing otherwise.
I want to thank HOMEF because in the area of climate change and environmental activism, HOMEF is at the top. This is not the first time I'm attending a conference by HOMEF. I attended one last year in Abuja. And I really applaud this partnership. We are bringing in frontline people are represented, activists are represented. They are now bringing the research people so that when an organization like HOMEF is speaking and what they are saying is backed up by the researchers like the institute that we are now, government will begin to listen. So it's a good step in the right direction.
It was agreed that the report for the state of the ocean should be extensive enough to cover the whole of Africa, with multidisciplinary scientific and data-driven reports including coastal community dwellers, relevant scientists, governing agencies, maritime workers, and CSOs with identified expertise, having the indicators to include governance and policy, with compliance to international frameworks and community engagement in research and conservation in the form of citizen and small-scale fisher support livelihood. Participants also noted the need to build movements and alliances and strengthen expertise around ocean tracking models, including training on relevant data gathering and analysis software. Stanley Egolo, HOMEF TV.
Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, CAPA, has noted that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has pleaded with policymakers to pay attention to the escalating climate crisis, considering Africa's socio-economic challenges. According to the advocacy group, the global temperature has surpassed the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold outlined in the Paris Agreement, threatening the environment and communities relying heavily on the stable climate condition.
So as the world marks the International Day for CO2 reduction, I think the message for Africa is very, very clear. Ours is a continent who contributes so insignificantly to climate change, but unfortunately bears the biggest brunt. There's no correlation to the development in Africa as to the suffering that Africa faces. And when we look back memory lane, look at the Paris Agreement, the happenings that we see now has been envisaged, has been predicted. Just recently, we saw the WMO report, that's the World Meteorological Organization report, that says that the last 10 years has been extremely warm, and the next 10 years will be warmer. And this is in line with the consistent caution of IPCC, that is the Governmental Panel on Climate Change. Ours is a continent or a region who suffers the most, despite contributing significantly. But interestingly as well, our policies are yet to advance alternatives outside carbon. You see, our government embracing carbon sequestration, direct carbon capture, advancing net zero, and all these foreign, suggestions that don't speak to our reality. If we want to be off the hook and we want to, fashion out our development in a way that will not, cut off people from surviving, or further put us, into a state of uncertainty.
Health of Mother Earth Foundation's annual retreat for 2025 focused on the theme Restoration and Dignity. The event served as a platform for careful review and analysis of the organization's activities, identifying areas for improvement, recommendations, and advancement. The week-long event witnessed presentations and training that charted the way forward for team members. Our correspondent Esile Ojanelu completes the report.
The team-building event allowed members to familiarize themselves with the organization's mission and values while providing seasoned members a refresher. The executive director, Nimo Bassi, stated that the theme, Restoration and Dignity, encapsulates everything the organization stands for. The year's key focus was building wellness, well-being, understanding, inclusion, and synergy.
To ensure restoration and dignity is to create words and create languages. We are pushing 3 new words: Yazunai, Ogonai, to learn from the Ogoni philosophy, and depetrolize, to move away from petrol. We want to build this dignity for all beings and all human beings. And then to remind ourselves that when you see the way people are doing things in the environment, you can understand how they're dealing with other human beings. Because the nature of our dealings with nature shows and illustrates how we relate and deal with other humans and other beings.
Leadership is not about standing above others, but walking alongside them. It is about listening as much as leading, learning as much as teaching, and serving as much as guiding. By embracing both roles, we can catalyze the radical eco-social change that our world so urgently needs. The way forward is that we must up our game in terms of social movement organizing, disruptive advocacy, decolonization, and anti-racism, and being led by nature and community.
As non-governmental organizations, is to stand behind the people, beside the people, never in front of them. To give them the tools, the skills, the opportunities, and the spaces to engage their contract bearers, to hold contract bearers accountable. Because when we do not allow that happen, we stand in between that engagement and we become some kind of brokers.
As HOMEF looks forward to the coming year, the spirit of solidarity and determination exhibited at the team-building event will undoubtedly guide its efforts in advocating for the health and well-being of our planet through team members' commitment to making the work year one that reflects the culture of life. The atmosphere at the event was filled with enthusiasm and dedication as members gathered to reflect on the previous year's achievements and chart a course for the new year. From engaging workshops to outdoor activities aimed at fostering teamwork and understanding HOMEF's core values, the team-building event offered a diverse range of experiences for its participants. Esele Ojanilo, HOMEF TV.
We'll go on a short break, and when we return, we'll move to Abuja, where youths urged the minister to support the ban on unhealthy consumables. Stay tuned.
Health of Mother Earth Foundation, HOMEF, invites you to her first School of Ecology session for the year with the theme Ecological Justice and Resilience. This session is HOMEF's maiden edition of the week-long School of Ecology, and it promises to be a space for knowledge instigation, experience sharing, and the creation of pathways for solution to our ecological challenges. Apply now for virtual participation on all our social media platforms at EcoHOMEF. HOMEF School of Ecology, the instigator for ecological action.
Welcome back. Healthy Food Policy Youth Vanguard has urged the Minister for Youth Development, Comrade Ayodele Olawande, to support stakeholders called the federal government to raise taxes on sugar sweetening beverages from 10 naira per litre to 130 naira per litre in the interest of public health. The volunteer group, which advocates for food justice and public health, describes the SSB tax as a pro-people and pro-health policy necessary to shield the youth from the alarming rise in non-communicable disease caused by excessive sugary drinks consumption.
In a statement signed by Adebayo on behalf of the group after it met with the minister, HFPYV warned that the sugary drinks and ultra-processed food industry is targeting Nigeria's teeming youth population with unhealthy food products backed by misleading advertising that manipulates them into forming unhealthy dietary habits. The group calls the attention of the Honorable Minister of Youth Development, Comrade Ayodele Olawande, to a disturbing trend of food corporations relentlessly targeting young Nigerians with unhealthy, sugar-sweetened beverages and ultra-processed foods that are generally high in sodium and sugar. It added that experts are already warning that many of our traditional dishes are going extinct because many young people enticed to embrace these unhealthy diets no longer know how to grow or prepare the plants necessary for these local healthy delicacies. According to HFPYV, the unhealthy diet crisis is causing the country invaluable manpower and productivity loss due to hospitalization and chronic disability of NCD victims. The group said this and other factors point to the need for urgent measures by the government, including the Minister of Youth Development, to protect the youths. It explained that one proven measure is the SSB tax introduced by the federal government to address the health issues arising from excessive consumption of sugary drinks. Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa (CAPA) launched the HFPYV on July 3, 2024. To equip young advocates with the knowledge and skills necessary to raise public awareness about healthy diet and lead conversations on food justice. Nena Abu for HOMEF TV.
Thank you, Inena, for that report. And we'll go to East Africa in Uganda, where parts of their efforts to build community resistance and resilience against oil and gas activities in the Elbistan region of Uganda. Following the drilling at the Mochinso Falls National Park, Communities have been displaced and residents are living in temporary housing. Women struggle to provide for their families in the Kikube district in the Albertine region of Uganda, an area deeply affected by oil and gas projects. It has been revealed that Total Energies and the CNOOC are extracting oil in the Mushinso Falls National Park, one of the biggest national parks in the region, and on the shores of Lake Albert.
These oil and gas projects have displaced hundreds of thousands of communities from their traditional lands, causing immense problems and suffering. In Uganda, almost 80% of the people depend entirely on their land for their livelihoods. These communities were displaced without due process or adequate compensation to acquire land elsewhere. This has left mothers vulnerable and has seen children dropping out of school.
These oil and gas activities, they have also displaced hundreds of thousands of the communities from their traditional land, which has caused a lot of problems, a lot of suffering within the oil host communities, where people have lost their land, have lost their livelihoods. As we all know that in Uganda, almost 80% of people entirely depend on the land as their livelihoods.
Young activists are motivated to stand in solidarity with other Ugandans and affected communities in the fight for their environmental rights to ensure that projects without respect for our cultures, environment, and ecological rights are stopped. Furthermore, girls and mothers have suffered greatly, especially those who lost their livelihoods.
This is one of the issues that actually motivated me to join this struggle, to stand with my fellow communities in solidarity, to fight for our own human rights, to fight for our environmental rights, and make sure that such kind of projects that does not have respect for our cultural values, that does not have respect for our environment, that does not have respect for our environmental rights, are stopped.
East African crude oil pipeline host communities in the oil project affected communities believe that as we fight these injustices, we need to empower these women to engage in green activities that can help them produce food for their families, earn money to send their children to school, and access medical services. Onome Etisioro for HOMEF TV.
In Benin City, the Edo State capital, Health of Moderates Foundation, HOMEF, has revived the reading culture and pushed the call for environmental justice through book reading, storytelling, and poetry. The habit of reading has been threatened by distraction from digital space. The event served as a platform to promote literature while advocating for socio-ecological justice in Nigeria and Africa. Our correspondent Stanley Egolo completes the report.
The book, A Walk in the Curfew, addresses failed government systems and other key players in society who have failed to address pressing environmental problems. The book, which was written out of experience and passion, was read to participants to remind them of the need to discontinue activities that pose threats to the environment. These stories also evoked the power of human connection, solidarity, and creativity in the face of adversity, expressing that there is hope for a safer and cleaner earth, but also offers insights and inspiration for a more just, equitable, and sustainable future. Speaking at the event, Dr. Nemo Basi, the Executive Director of HOMEF, emphasized that the session was drawn from A Walk in the Curfew, a collection of stories inspired by the COVID-19 lockdown that explore poverty, environmental justice, and resilience.
This book that was written in the very time that the world was locked down shows the fact that, look, when things happen this way, don't just ignore it. It's time to sit down and think. And particularly concerning Nigeria, we want Nigerians to pick up ideas from books, from music, from drama, from movies about what they can do to make the environment better, and also what they can resist and refuse to allow others to do in our environment.
Speaking after the event, one of the authors, Onome Etisioro, revealed that her inspiration came from the turnout of events during the lockdown, which ignited a need to reflect on human activities and how they can impact nature. other speakers shared that her writings were born following her visit to Bonny Island in Rivers State, where she discovered dead fish by the riverbank. This inspired her need to create awareness through storytelling.
In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, in the wake of the lockdowns, and the how we were all cooped up indoors. Yes, the pandemic, the lockdown inspired fear. The pandemic inspired fear in us, in that fear in me, basically, in that I saw nature as the opponent at that time. It was something that was scary, but it was also something that made me think that, oh, if nature is fighting us now, it would mean that we have to have done something to her for her to fight back. And so it allowed me to introspect or reflect on human activities on nature and how it impacts nature and affects her.
What actually inspired me to write the story was I went to that community to shoot a documentary, and then I stumbled upon the fishes that were dead, and it piqued my mind, and I'm like, okay, so people actually are facing this kind of situation, and then one would wonder how the fisherman would cope at that particular time when the country is faced with lockdown and people are scrambling for survival. And it brought to mind that we actually do need nature as humans, but not nature needing us, as we were made to believe. Because I came to realize that man is dependent on the environment. So we have every responsibility to protect the environment as humans and not just allow the environment to die. And it also brought to reality that as humans, we are solely responsible, like I said earlier, to protect the environment, how we see it and how it will relate to us.
Through the power of storytelling, the session reminded participants of the rising urgency of environmental protection, the need to deploy policies that prioritize nature, and the challenge to individuals and institutions to rethink their actions towards the environment. The session ended with a renewed commitment to protecting the environment. Participants were urged to adopt more reliable practices that promote environmental friendliness. The distinguished authors of the book include Mfoniso Zahel, an environmental scientist, Ogeneko Meodomo, the media and communication lead at HOMEF, and Onome Tisioro, the legal desk officer at Health of Mother Earth Foundation. Stanley Ekolo for HOMEF TV.
You've been watching the news on HOMEF TV. Thank you for staying with us. I am Kome Odomo.